We have three commencements a year here at Lee, and the first one of them is coming up in a couple of weeks. So we are saying congratulations and goodbye for now to a wonderful group of seniors who will be back here in Conn Center, marching in cap and gown, and graduating from Lee in a couple of weeks. It's our custom to ask some of these seniors to take a few minutes and simply share reflections on what it's been like for them to be at Lee for this period of time that they've been at Lee. And that's our program for today. And then our final chapel will be next Tuesday, and all we have Tuesday is Christmas music to get us in the final exam season and get us in the spirit of all that. So I want to introduce each of these 5 students who are going to come share their reflections about their time at Lee, and then we'll go from there without any additional talk or introductions to the benediction. First, we are going to hear from a public relations major, Hallie Camilleri, public relations from Paducah, Kentucky. And then after we hear from her, we will hear from Ben Benavides. Ben is a healthcare administration major from Merced, California. Then we're going to hear from Tolulope Sofeso. How did I do? Is there a nickname in there somewhere? She's a biochemistry major from Nigeria. And then we'll hear from Michael Ray. Michael is that's a nice, easy name to say. Michael Ray, and a finance major from Bushnell, Florida. And then finally we'll close with Elizabeth Brooks from right here in Cleveland, Tennessee, a nursing major. And after we've heard from these 5, the benediction will be brought to us by Jared Loudermilk, a pastoral ministry major from Louisville, Kentucky. I always really look forward to hearing these reflections every year at the end of the semester, and let's enjoy hearing what these students have to say.
So, my junior year of high school, I visited Lee with my mom for Lee Day. I told my mom at the last minute that I didn't really want to go, but she told me that there would be free food. So isn't it incredible what God can do with a free pizza? I fell in love with Lee, and by the end of the weekend, I knew that I would go to school here. I made a plan for my time here at Lee based on what I had learned from my Lee Day experience. My priorities were to marry a boy from Ohio, just any boy, to get a degree in business or math or something like that, join Student Leadership Council, make money after graduation, yes, and maybe do some youth ministry if my husband and I were called to it. So, my senior year of high school, I would literally drive to campus and just walk around and cry because of how beautiful all the buildings were. To say that I was excited for Lee is an understatement. I was a summer honors kid, so I came into Lee. Oh yeah, summer honors. Oh yeah. I came into Lee thinking that I probably knew more about Lee than Paul Kahn himself. I had my plan all laid out and I was ready. My first year at summer honors, though, I explained all this to my RA group, and they began to pray for me that God would show me that his purpose for my life was bigger than any paycheck or plan that I could imagine. I had a really hard time letting go of my plans, but at this point, I started to realize that maybe God might have something more in store for me than what I thought was best at 17 years old. Those 2 weeks in 2014 and 2015 changed my life and set a course of trajectory that would ultimately lead me to the places God was calling me to be. So going into that first year at school, I slowly began to trust God and that his will could be better than my own. One of the first things I learned my freshman year is that I can fit 48 pizzas in my Ford Focus. I remember thinking that this was not what I expected college to be like, but I jumped into Student Leadership Council head first, following my fearless leader, Alex Stopp, to student engagement. Alex explained this committee to me as the Ring by Spring Committee, which was a lie, but it was still great. I learned so much from my new lead community, and I even had the privilege to work alongside of the great adults that lead this campus, like Mike and Angela Hayes, and Rosie and Morgan Adams, and Rochelle Mayberry. To my surprise, God opened every single door imaginable for me, and by the end of the year, I was ready to lead the Marketing Recruitment Committee for SLC. I was going to be a peer leader in the fall. I had an internship with Lee's Alumni Relations Office, and I accidentally joined the Domestic Peace Corps for 10 weeks with a local nonprofit called Andor. Yes. That summer between my first and second year at Lee changed my life. For one, I had the most incredible bosses, both at Alumni and at Andor. They poured into me as I tried to figure out how to use my passions and my gifts for more than I had ever expected. It was also a very weird summer, surprisingly. I woke up in my hammock on my first camping trip with Andor, and 3 of the boys came up to me and whispered that they had just seen a bear. And I said, "No, you didn't." But they pointed into the woods, and sure enough, there was a mama black bear and her 3 cubs. So, the scariest part, though, was when they asked me if they could go and pet the bear. I realized I would never understand middle school boys. So I went into my second year at Lee, and it was really intense. I tried to fit all of the experiences that you usually have your sophomore through senior year into 2 semesters. It was really hard, but there wasn't a single thing that I was doing that I didn't absolutely love. I questioned my worth and ability basically every day, but I knew that I had to trust that God wouldn't have called me here if he wasn't going to help me do it. And sure enough, he did some amazing things in my life that year. When I look back, I remember my Gateway class. They would pray for Harambe, and they would laugh at me and my co-Michael and our prof, Dr. Tagiuna. I remember the members of SLC's Marketing Recruitment Committee. We flawlessly performed a 2.5-minute routine set to a custom meme mashup that we spent 3 days choreographing. But it was all worth it when we won Best Intro at SLC Olympics, so. I remember the 8 double-layer cookie cakes that I ordered for Welcome Home, the greatest event in Lee's history, and the R2-D2 Bop It that we gave to Shamira for Best 90s Costume. I remember getting breakfast and getting coffee and doing life with a lot of you. This semester, I feel is best described by a quote from Michael Scott. I feel like all my kids grew up and got married. It's every parent's dream. My life at this point is nothing like what I expected it to be. It wasn't my plan, and for that, I'm so grateful. God miraculously shaped my path to offer me the best blessings and gifts that Lee University could give me. I wanted to learn how to live a more authentic life and lead in a community, and Lee has given me that and so much more. I love all of you and the past 2.5 years that we've been able to share together at Lee. Thank you so much. They've truly changed my life. Thank you.
My Lee story actually begins in spring 2012. I was a junior in high school and had already been accepted into the University of Louisville's nursing program and was dead set on becoming a Cardinal. But my parents insisted that we check out a thing called Lee Day. And you know how Lee Day goes. They feed you all this awesome fried chicken and green beans, give you free t-shirts and backpacks. Then they send out voices of Lee to hypnotize you. Now, it definitely worked on my parents, but I wasn't quite sold yet. At that point in my life, I had a huge fear of being uncomfortable and facing the unknown. I also still wasn't sure about my faith, and so the thought of going to a Christian school was daunting, to say the least. Nevertheless, after going to summer honors both junior and senior year, I felt comfortable and excited to take a leap into the uncharted territory of Cleveland, Tennessee. My freshman year was a mixture of wacky, wonderful, and just plain crazy moments. I'll never forget my floor on OB1 and and all the fun times we had, yep, all the fun times we had playing poker on the pool table with Taco Bell hot sauce packets, the numerous 2K and Madden tournaments, the undesired but highly entertaining religious and political debates, and having hall-wide wrestling matches at 3 a.m. in the morning. Overall, my first year was filled with a lot of highs and a lot of laughs, and I felt very optimistic about the future. But I remember still having conflicts at that time about the person I wanted to be. Oh gosh, voice crack. Don't worry, we'll recover. The person I wanted to be and the person who I knew I should be. Moving along, the first semester of my sophomore year, I ended up doing something I never thought I would do. Rush a Greek club. I got into Pi Kappa Pi and embarked on a journey filled with so many life-changing moments, all of which played a part in developing who I am today. Pi blessed me with a big brother that poured into me and told me how much he believed in me, as well as friends that I was able to share good times and bad times with. However, at that point in my life, I remember having so much distrust towards people, especially towards Christians, and I couldn't wrap my mind around how so many of my peers could profess to believe in God and worship him one day, but act completely different another day. It just seemed really fake to me. And as a result of this distrust, I started to grow more distant towards Lee and towards faith in general, and I began to isolate myself from pretty much everyone except Pi. This mentality carried over into my junior year, and as the hardships began to stack up, I started to feel desperation. I even began looking for ways to transfer to a new school just so I could have a fresh start. I was also covering up a deep-rooted depression that kept growing to the point where I couldn't hide it anymore. But thankfully, God had a plan for my life that was just around the corner, a plan to give me purpose and meaning, to feel confident for once, and to finally love others for who they are, not for what they have to offer me. And to make a long story short, I decided to give it my absolute best, 100% effort in living a life modeled after Christ. And it wasn't long after this decision that I started to see the blessings that God had in store for me all along. Beginning in January 2016, the Lord opened up doors for me to be involved with campus choir, residential life, alternative chapel, and a big brother in Omega. I remember my first semester in campus choir and how each service we sang at was a humbling reminder of God's faithfulness in my life. The joy I discovered and the love I experienced from my CC family gave me the confidence to pursue the RA position in BOB the following semester, which was the start of my senior year. As an RA, I got to live with a group of 30 guys who had backgrounds from all walks of life and who kept me on my toes more often than not. I also learned that I thought I knew about sports. That is, until I listened to two of my residents from memory recite every single first-round NFL draft pick from 2008. It was amazing. All in all, being an RA stretched me in ways I couldn't imagine and allowed me to see the potential in the guys in my hall and help them realize their potential as well. Now, my story wouldn't be complete if I didn't mention my ladies in Jade. I grew up with 4 younger half-brothers, but there's always been a part of me that wanted a sister. And thankfully, I was blessed with over 50 last semester when I got tapped into Omega Alpha Phi. And I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. My story is sadly coming to a close in just a mere 17 days. Sorry. I'll be leaving the school I've had the privilege to call my home for 4.5 years. I've had some of my greatest hardships and lows during my time here, and it hasn't been easy by any means. But this school also helped me discover the realness of the greatest gift I could ever receive, the gift of Jesus Christ. And I know I don't have it all figured out yet, but I can confidently say I'm leaving this school knowing without a shadow of a doubt of who I am and why I'm created. I also leave knowing what I'm capable of, and it's nothing short of changing the world and advancing the kingdom of God. So, thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Tolu, and I'm going to be sharing my Lee experience with you today. Oh God, help me ease these nerves. Okay. Okay, since I was 14 years old, I had the desire to study abroad. I looked into studying in the UK and several other schools in the US. But I believe that God knew where I was meant to be, so he sent representatives from Lee all the way to Nigeria in the fall of 2013. During this time, I listened to Phil Cook and Cole Strong speak so passionately about Lee University. They showed videos of international students who were already students here, and they talked about what Lee represented. The moment I heard it was a Christian school, I knew I had gained a very powerful tool to be used in convincing my parents, being that I was raised in a Christian household and I am a pastor's child. That day I applied to Lee University, and a couple weeks later I received my acceptance letter. After going through the visa processing, because that's what you have to do as an international student, and convincing my parents to let their 16-year-old daughter out of Nigeria, on January 22nd, 2014, I boarded a plane to America with 3 other girls as I journeyed into the unknown, which is Lee University. Arriving at Lee University in the spring semester, I was welcomed with the freezing cold, which I had never experienced before, because Nigeria, it's 2 seasons, rainy and dry. And then I was also welcomed with smiles on everyone's faces, which I thought was also strange, because it's not necessarily what you do in Nigeria. Because you don't just walk around and smile at strangers, except if you're trying to make a pass at them or something. Anyway, I was also welcomed with 8 a.m.s in general chemistry with Dr. Krebs, and early mornings at Dunkin' Donuts with pleasant Miss Amy, knowing I would always order the mint hot chocolate. I was also welcomed into Gateway with Rochelle Mayberry and 9 other students from Nigeria. This class, Gateway, truly was a gateway to Lee University, because I would have been so lost without it. I was also welcomed with many questions, like where do I fit on this campus, especially since I'm coming from Nigeria, and would this homesickness ever leave? And would I always mistake the education building for humanities? I'm like, guys, I don't know. Even up to junior year, I did the same thing. Anyway, however, thankfully, as the days went by and winter became spring, some of these questions began to be answered. I joined LUASA, Lee University's African Student Association, and quickly discovered that I was not alone in my struggles, and I could gain support from people experiencing similar things as me. LUASA became home away from home for me, a place where I could pour out my heart and be honest about my struggles. My second semester, I represented LUASA at Culture Fest and won Miss Diversity, because that's what you do as a And this led me to the Diversity Council, where I quickly found my passion for helping us all discover strength in diversity, no matter the skin color, personality type, or upbringing. Through the Diversity Council, I learned that my neighbor is not just someone who I know or has similar struggles as me, but everyone that I get to interact with is my neighbor and deserves to be heard. Being a floor leader on Sharp Davis helped me grow in my love for people and listening to the hearts of people. And as a peer leader, I definitely learned to put action to my love and serve even when it demanded a lot from me. Attending Alternative Chapel taught me the value in vulnerability and authenticity. At Lee, I learned that God indeed is merciful. This place is not a perfect place, and we are definitely imperfect people, but God indeed is merciful. He still used every genuine smile, every genuine how are you for his purpose. I don't know how I would have made it through my biochemistry degree if not for the love and support from the Res Life staff whom I worked with as an office assistant. The many Friday dance parties definitely helped me keep my sanity when I had only 4 hours of sleep. At Lee, I experienced challenges as well, from getting my first D in a class to having to really find myself on days when it felt like I was just doing things because I wanted to fit in or because other people expected it of me. And also to arriving at the conclusion that maybe being a medical doctor is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, but to pursue a degree in mental health. However, I can tell you confidently that God has met me in this place, in chapel services, when it felt like my tears wouldn't stop flowing as the band led in worship. In Biochemistry 2 class, where a classmate really encouraged me to stay in the fight for success at a moment when I felt like a failure. And the many hugs and smiles, of course, that I have received on this campus. God has met me here. Lee University has given me a safe place to question, to make mistakes, to hurt, to harness and sharpen my strengths, to discover God's grace and find my very own faith. Most importantly, I have gained lifelong friendships with people from different walks and stages of life, all of which have helped me to see the image of God more clearly. Thank you.
I want to inform you all today about an event that happened in my life at Lee that has impacted me since I've been here, and my future, and the way I see people. But before I begin, I want to give you some background information on myself so you guys know kind of where I'm coming from. So when I was 3, I lost my hearing to meningitis, and I'm 100% deaf in both my ears. But Christ has granted me the ability to hear again through what's called a cochlear implant, which is what I wear on my head. This is a technology that allows me to hear through a surgery that I had when I was 3. And this is something I wear on my head every day for the rest of my life. But growing up, I always struggled being extroverted, reaching out to people, talking to people, getting to know people. I was always reclusive because that's how it is in the deaf culture. You don't want to put yourself out there and be forward. But the only way I could do that was through sports, through baseball. That was the only way I felt like I could be myself and be normal, by wearing a hat or a helmet so nobody could see who I really was. My journey here at Lee began because of baseball. This is my 4th college and my 3rd for baseball, and I'm here to tell you that this is the greatest college that I have been a part of. The story I want to tell you about today takes place in an event on our baseball team that happened 2 years ago. We went to Mississippi College to play a game on a road trip one series, and I was tasked with the job of taking radar behind home plate with one of my fellow teammates, Winston. When we went behind home plate, I saw a woman with her son, and he had double cochlear implants. And every time I went back there to take radar that game, this is the boy Carter that I ended up meeting. So continuing on, every time we went back behind home plate to take radar, I would look at this little boy and I would say to Winston, I was like, man, should I say something? Should I go up and tell him that, I'm just like him? And I was too scared. I couldn't find the courage to go up and tell a 1-year-old little boy and his mom, I'm just like him. So what happened was I ended up pitching that game, and the game ended, and I never got the opportunity to speak to the boy and his mother and let him know that I was just like him. As it turns out, a couple days later, the little woman called me to tell me that Winston, my teammate, had reached out to her and told her that, I was just like this little boy. And she wanted to call me and ask me some questions about my life and my journey and how I'm able to do all these things and be just like everybody else despite having a disability. This made me realize that this story and being involved in Carter's life today made me realize that people need people. We need each other. We need relationships in our lives with our teammates, with our teachers, and with one another. I share this with you because none of this would have happened, first of all, if I came to Lee. But if I had a bad relationship with my teammate, he wouldn't simply cared enough to put me out there and put me in that situation. If there's one thing I can take away from my Lee University experience that I hope you all can benefit from, it would be this. College is more than just getting an education. It's the people that you meet here. Those are the ones that you're going to take with you in your journey along the way. One of my favorite things about being an athlete was getting to know my teammates and my coaches personally off the field. So I encourage all of you guys, those in Greek clubs, those in choir, in worship bands, lead singers, I hope you take this opportunity in college to get to know one another and build and cultivate relationships amongst yourself. If you're anything like me, you're the kind of guy that takes an exam, and as soon as you walk out the door, you automatically forget what just happened. But I promise you this, in 10, 20, 30 years, the people that you're sitting next to right now in your classrooms, on your teams, in your clubs, those are the people that you're going to remember, and you're going to want those relationships in your life. Because life is hard sometimes, and you need a little help along the way. And I want to conclude with this quote today by one of my favorite college basketball coaches, Shaka Smart. He says this: "People don't care how much we know or what we do until they know how much we care." Thank you.
He's tall. Sorry. Okay. Some of you may already know me and are familiar with how my freshman experience started out. It was my first official night staying on a college campus as a student. My room was perfect, the towels were new, my shower caddy was full, everything matched, and everything was monogrammed. While plotting out my Joanna Gaines perfect room on the 3rd floor of Sharp, I was under the impression that if I lofted my bed 6 feet off the ground, I would have plenty of room for all of my new friends to hang out in. Later that afternoon, during our raid through Target, my mother and I discussed the option of getting a baby gate for the outer edge of my mattress so I wouldn't fall out. Obviously, I was more worried about my new comforter getting wrinkled, and I told her it would look stupid. It was never brought up again, and about 12 hours later that night, I had rolled out of bed sound asleep. I hit the ground, immediately started screaming, and felt excruciating pain. My roommate woke up, turned the lights on, and said, "What are you doing on the floor?" I frantically screamed and said, "I fell out of bed. I think I broke my back. Go get the RA." And in true freshman fashion, she replies, "What's an RA?" Long story short, the RA arrived, they called 911, and I was transported by EMS to the local hospital. After many x-rays and my ear being folded like a fortune cookie by the neck brace I had on, we found out that I had broken my pelvis in 3 places. My tailbone and my elbow were also fractured. Talk about a bad first day of school. Classes started the next day, and I was completely devastated. My perfect room was ruined, my first day of college outfit was wasted, and I thought it was the worst day of my life. Little did I know this would be one of the most transformational experiences of my college career. While recovering in the hospital for the next 4 days, I could have never imagined the roller coaster God had just put me on. I was a pre-med biology major planning to go to PA school and had no idea how hard that was going to be. My parents hired me a tutor to visit me 3 days a week at home, whom I owe my GPA to, and I somehow managed to pass freshman chemistry and biology. It was a 4-week-long It was a 4-week-long grueling and tedious recovery, but most of all, it was humbling. I am naturally independent, but my injuries forced me to ask for help with almost every normal daily task. Through my frustration with dependence on others, I was able to realize how truly blessed I am and ultimately found my passion for healthcare. Fall semester of the next year, I changed my major to nursing. Nursing school has been the most challenging and most rewarding journey of my life thus far. I have seen lives saved, lives lost, and lives changed through finding God in the most vulnerable state of being. When nurses encounter people, they are sick and often seeking hope for a better tomorrow. I truly love how Lee's nursing program has taught us how to integrate faith and prayer into our practice. During my lowest low of nursing school, when I failed a class last fall, I realized life isn't always going to happen according to what we want. I had to practice what I preached to my patients and trust that there is always a reason for the unexpected obstacles in our lives and that God doesn't waste a hurt. Looking back retrospectively, I can see that God was using these struggles to teach me how to empathize with my patients during their lowest lows and their moments of vulnerability. I listen to my patients, I pray with them for healing, and I encourage them to trust their journey. Throughout my time at Lee, I have recognized that life is not ever going to happen according to my plan. It will always be God's plan. If I could go back in time, I would not want any part of my Lee experience to be changed. Through the struggle and the hard times, I came out stronger in the end and have found purpose for that pain. I have accepted my dream job at Vanderbilt University Medical Center and am so excited for the future. Thank you.
I'm just going to make a few announcements. It's a little short. Tuesday, we have our Christmas chapel. We hope to see all of you guys there. It's going to be awesome. It's always kind of nice to usher in the Christmas spirit before we leave school. Tonight is student club night for our men's and women's basketball team as they take on Auburn Montgomery University tonight at 6 and 8. And this weekend on Saturday, we're also playing University of West Georgia at 2 and 4. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, you are so holy that you've made a way for us to approach you. We praise you for being our helper and for your Holy Spirit's conviction, correction, and protection in our lives. We humbly come before you to thank you for all you have done in our lives here at Lee University and continue to do each and every day. We ask that you bless us, Lord, as we leave here today, to take your passion with us, fan its flame after we part and inspire our best contributions. Remind us always of your love as we strive to obey your will for our lives. We thank you and we love you, Lord. If you all would say the college benediction with me. Now let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen.